Hi, I'm John McAuliffe, Chief Marketing Officer of VFM Leonardo, and welcome to VTV channel. VTV has been produced for hotel e-commerce, marketing, and sales professionals to provide insights, knowledge, and learnings from industry experts on how to extract more value from a hotel's presence on the internet. Each week, I interview an industry expert on a single topic. We encourage you to email us at vtv@vfmleonardo.com and suggest topics that you would like us to cover in future episodes. Today, I'm joined by Chris Anderson, Assistant Professor at the Cornell School of Hotel Administration. His main research focus is on revenue management and service pricing. He has worked with a variety of hotels, airlines, rental car and tour companies, as well as numerous consumer packaged good and financial services firms. He works with them in the application and development of revenue management. Dr. Anderson's research has been funded by numerous government agencies and industrial partners, and he serves on the editorial board of the Journal of Revenue and Pricing Management and is the regional editor for the International Journal of Revenue Management. Chris, thank you for joining us today on VTV, and welcome.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me, and look forward to some good discussions.
Great. Our first episode and the first topic that we're going to talk today about is a study that you've recently published through Cornell University on what's called the Billboard effect. Our audience of hoteliers are oftentimes confused about what the role of OTAs are in the travel planning process and how they should use them to help extract some more value out of all of the work they're doing in e-business. Can you help us by giving us a good overview of what the Billboard effect is, and in particular, the study that you did that measured the Billboard effect?
Sure. Okay, John. So basically, the study was done in partnership with JHM Hotels and Expedia. And what we did there was we had 4 sample properties. And those 4 sample properties were cycled on and off of Expedia for a period of 3 months. And so basically, treatment A had each of those properties on the first page of Expedia when you searched for their specific location. And that period A lasted somewhere between a week and 10 days. And then in the second treatment, basically, if you search that same city, you would not find that property anywhere on Expedia, even if you typed in the name of that property specifically. So basically, we went through this period of prime placement to a period of no placement. And then what we did in each of those periods is tracked total reservations at the property for all future stay dates. And then at the end of the experiment, we compared the reservations that were made when the property was listed at Expedia versus the reservations that were made when it was, delisted at Expedia. And what we determined was there was a lift of, probably on average 20% across these 4 properties when the property was displayed on Expedia. And this lift is above and beyond any reservations that they took in from Expedia. Right, so any reservations that were made at Expedia were considered a bonus. What we really just focused on is the reservations that were made at all other channels, their call center, their brand.com, other sites, and looked at how those reservations were impacted by the act of being listed at Expedia. So basically, Expedia was creating exposure. This exposure generated about a 20% lift in reservations above and beyond any reservations that were accepted through the OTA.
So you're saying that your study determined that placement on an OTA like Expedia resulted in a 20% increase in the bookings that hotel experienced on their own website.
Right, their own website, any of their own channels, their website, their call center, basically
Okay.
any channel outside of Expedia itself.
And from the standpoint of putting that into terms, dollar terms, What type of, on average, what does that mean for an individual hotel from a money perspective?
Well, again, that's hard to say as a function of your rates, et cetera. But basically, you're looking at a significant lift above and beyond those reservations that are coming through Expedia. So historically, hoteliers have had some issues with the online travel agents because of the commission structure that they basically require. So relatively large commissions at many of the online travel agents. And so what we're arguing here is that those commissions on those reservations at the online travel agent are really distributed over a much broader set of reservations than just those reservations that are made at the online travel agent. So for example, in the report, I talk about a property that, say had 10% of its transactions through the online travel agent at an average cost of 15% commission. If the Billboard effect was 20%, then that basically means that the reservations they receive elsewhere sort of offset those reservations cost-wise, made it Expedia such that the commissions are closer to 7%. So really, when you think of most people focus on the expense associated with the traffic they produce at these online travel agents. Those expenses are a fair bit smaller.
Right. So it's a more complex venture for people to really be able to understand what the return on investment is on having presence on an OTA like Expedia, and in fact, it's not the cost of being on Expedia is not as directly related to what that commission is.
Right. And we also looked at, so because the way the experiment was designed, we were tracking reservations over a very large set of stay dates. So we couldn't actually compare, say, RevPARs or occupancies during the test. But what we could compare is the actual rates that were coming in during the on period versus the off period, on the assumption that if a property is pulling in more reservations volume, they're going to be more actively managing their inventory and probably increasing their rates. And so what we found was that the actual ADRs or the actual rates that the properties could attain while being listed at Expedia was about 2 or 3% higher than when they were off Expedia. Right. So that sort of talks to the financial side, is that the incremental reservations allow you to sort of yield higher and generate a 2 or 3% increase in ADR. Right. So again, all things equal, that would, lean towards a substantive revenue impact. Right. Again, that's across all reservations, not just those Expedia-based reservations. So the costs are
Chris,
lower.
I have no doubt that your study has created some controversy within the hotel industry, and probably you have gained some increased exposure to the industry because of it. Because the OTAs are a controversial topic with hoteliers in a cost-driven industry, and in fact, I think some people have recently spoken out. I've read some postings on blogs that had covered your study where people are still questioning, and I quote one person here where they say the big question is still, do OTAs truly add to total room nights, or are they just moving business around and taking a big slice of hotels' cash flow? And I think you're also familiar with a recent article that's been published where Smith Travel Research had tracked the occupancy and ADR and RevPAR of some hotels in Columbus, Georgia, who for completely different reasons have been off of all OTAs for the last year, and they have not seen a degradation in occupancy rates or ADRs. And in fact, a quote from one of the hotels that was taken off of the OTAs I quote the general manager of that hotel, where he says, "We don't do anything with any of those people." He said, referring to the OTAs, "We don't and won't." He added, he refuses to pay a commission to an outside firm to generate business he can generate on his own. That sounds contrary to the findings that you have in your study. Can you help us understand better what you think is happening with these hotels that are not on OTAs in Columbus, Georgia, and the holdouts within the hotel industry who still believe that OTAs are eating into their already existing cash flows?
Sure. I don't really see any differences between that statement and what I'm talking about. It really depends upon how you look at the OTAs, right? The key to look at the OTAs is to think of them as a marketing vehicle, right? So if you look at them as a reservations vehicle or some transaction-based process, then they seem costly. But if you look at them basically as one of your marketing tools, and treat it as a marketing expense, then they are a very effective marketing tool. And so these properties in Georgia basically had to resort to other marketing actions to generate that demand. So the individual's comment about demand that he himself could create, and that sort of goes to the point. He had to create that demand. He had to sort of market, whether that was an online campaign, an email campaign, an old school billboard on the side of the road, whatever that might be. He had to spend, marketing effort to sort of build that demand. And firms really need to look at Expedia as marketing effort, right? Whether that's just placement on Expedia or whether that's ads or videos that are posted on Expedia as part of an advertising campaign. But really, when we think of the online travel agent, you really need to think of it as a marketing vehicle versus, a reservations engine.
That's interesting. It really changes the lens that you would look through. So rather than looking at these as the net, as you talked about, of a 7% commission, it's really that 7% is representative of your marketing budget, and you're investing that marketing budget in creating demand on all of your channels in addition to the OTA channels.
Exactly. That's just part of that. You really need it. Depends how you look at it. So historically, when we've looked at revenue management, we really haven't thought much about marketing. We've really looked at, yielding rate and keeping capacity back for, higher willingness to pay guests, right? But we see in sort of today's market where demand is considerably less than supply, we're having to actively create demand, and it's much more a demand management exercise. And the OTA, search engine marketing, customer relationship marketing, any sort of data-driven marketing is all part of that exercise, right? And you really need to look at things as marketers versus historical yielders from the yield management sort of context.
Chris, thank you very much for your insights on the Billboard effect. We look forward to having you on future episodes of VTV to share your insights with our audience.
Thanks again, John.
And to all the viewers out there, be sure to post your comments on this episode of VTV and subscribe to our feed to receive more valuable insights from industry experts.